Good morning, everyone. All right, we're going to get started. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so this morning, we want the very first voice that we hear and start this program to be the voice of Honorable Juanita Jewel Craft. Please listen in. Thank you.
I am an American citizen. I happen to be of a darker hue than some other Americans. I don't believe in segregation, and I refuse to segregate myself because that's the only way that I can say to the other fella, don't you segregate me. I lived under segregation for a number of years. I was not happy there because I saw the barriers that had been placed in front of me. I defy anybody to tell me that I can't think because I am a female. I defy anybody to say that I can't think because of my age. I'm proud of my age. And I've said to people all the time, don't criticize me because God has blessed me with age. I think that I have been left here to do something for somebody. And I think that I'm going to be about that chore. And I have them all laughing that you will never put me in a corner anywhere.
So I do ask that everyone please stand as we prepare to sing the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and welcome Miss Mahogany with Jazz Because Arts Group.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listing skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. That was, you may take your seats. Thank you so much. That was Mahogany with Jazz Because Arts Group getting us started this morning. So good morning, good morning, good morning to you all, and welcome to the Juanita J. Craft Civil Rights House and Museum. So thank you for being here. My name is Candace Thompson, and I am the board chair of the Friends of Juanita Craft Civil Rights House and Museum. And on behalf of our organization and our partners with the Junior League of Dallas and the City of Dallas, we are so thrilled, and we welcome you here this morning. Our three organizations have been tied together in a labor of love. And for the past few years, and this morning, you will hear more about what it took for us to get here. I'd like to start by recognizing our elected officials who are gathered with us this morning. We have Council Member Janie Schultz, City Manager T.C. Broadnex, Council Member Adam Bazadua, former Council Member Ms. Valletta Lill, former Council Member Honorable Diane Ragsdale, Council Member Paula Blackman, representative of Vinton Jones Hill office here. We have Councilmember Jaime Resendez. We have Judge Kim Cooks, and we have Councilmember Gay Donnell Willis. If there are any others, please let me know, and I will make certain that we give our respects to you as well. Today we are gathered to celebrate a significant day in the life of our history, and we are here to celebrate a significant leader in the history of our city. It is such an honor to reopen this historic home to the public and to share this place with the entire world. Just by way of context, Juanita Jewel Shanks was born in Round Rock, Texas in 1902. When Miss Craft was very young, her mother died of tuberculosis, and after she was refused hospital treatment based on the color of her skin. This had a profound effect on Mrs. Craft and was part of what inspired her lifelong dedication to community service, advocacy, and activism. Despite finishing college, when Ms. Craft arrived in Dallas in the early 1920s, she was only able to get work as a bellmaid at the Adolphus Hotel downtown. The Adolphus is one of the first places where Ms. Craft lifted her voice to speak out against what she felt was an injustice. The gift shop at the Adolphus used to sell commemorative postcards of the 1910 Allen Brooks lynching that took place on Main and Eckerd. Mrs. Craft was outraged by this and walked Eleanor Roosevelt, who she had befriended at the hotel, to the site in 1932. Mrs. Craft detailed the atrocity to Mrs. Roosevelt, who promptly voiced her displeasure with the managing director, who then removed the postcard from being sold at the gift shop. 2 years later, when she told that same managing director she had to leave the bellmaid staff, he said to her, "Juanita, you did the right thing by getting rid of that appalling postcard. Thank you. I expect to see you in the papers someday." And it turns out that managing director, Mr. R.B. Elfritz, foretold of an amazing career of activism, community service, and public service that spanned over 50 years. Mrs. Craft is a civil rights icon, a Dallas icon, a Texas icon, and she is an American icon. Some of Mrs. Craft's most significant work came as a member of the NAACP, an organization that she joined in 1935. She organized 182 local branches across the state of Texas, from Pampa to El Paso, over an 11-year period. When Mrs. Craft lived here, her walls were adorned with the many awards and recognitions she received for her years of exemplary service. The first award she received was in 1955, after she made a donation of $3,078.38 to the NAACP. That would be a really nice donation today, but imagine giving that amount of money in 1955. In 1969, she was recognized with the Lenz Award, which is still given today. The Lenz Award is one of the oldest civic honors presented to individuals in our city. One day, a visitor to Mrs. Craft's house was looking around and remarked, "This is what you call living walls." Your life is on these walls. And when you have a chance to see the results of this magnificent restoration, you will find the life of Mrs. Craft on these walls. And you will find the story of Dallas on these walls. Sometimes people mistakenly say that Dallas didn't have a civil rights movement. But when you walk through this museum, you will learn about the many Dallas residents from across the city, and especially here in South Dallas, who stood up against racism and injustice. At this time, I'd like to invite City Council Member Adam Balzadua of South Dallas.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much, Candace. Along with Mayor Johnson, who unfortunately could not be present today, I am honored to welcome each of you to sunny South Dallas this morning. Also, in historic Queen City neighborhood, and I would like to give acknowledgement as well to our neighborhood leaders. We have Miss Eva Jones here today. Also, I saw that we have Miss Willie Mae Coleman in attendance as well. I don't know where you are, but I'd like to give a round of applause for some of the leaders that we have here in sunny South Dallas who have kept progress going. I represent Dallas Council District, where we've gathered here today, and I couldn't be more proud of what's being done with this city treasure. Just as it's mentioned, it's beyond a city treasure. This is an American treasure. Today, I'm standing on the shoulders of Miss Juanita Craft, who served this district long before I was even born. She was elected to the Dallas City Council in 1975 at the age of 73. Mrs. Craft was once asked how she became interested in running for office. She referred to a personal slogan that many elected officials and others can relate to, and that is, if I don't like what the other fellow is doing, I'm going to get up and do it myself. While her 2 terms on council are significant, another place where Ms. Craft made huge impact was the State Fair of Texas. Every year, Fair Park and the State Fair of Texas welcomed thousands and thousands of visitors. And we know that the fair was one of the most diverse gatherings that you can imagine. In 1955, the fair was segregated, a tradition that dated back to the 1880s. Black Dallasites were only given 1 day to attend the State Fair of Texas, to enjoy themselves without the threat of discrimination. Just 1 day. So it was in that year that Juanita Craft and members of the NAACP Youth Council organized a boycott for the State Fair to end that. Young people picketed the fair, holding up signs that read, "Don't sell your pride for a segregated ride." She coined the term Negro Appeasement Day and made huge impact. And I'll tell you, that impact is something that has carried on today, because I see many members of the State Fair of Texas here honoring the legacy. And I want to say thank you for that. And thank you for carrying her legacy on to be honored during the State Fair of Texas as well, with scholarships even in her name. Mrs. Craft brought more adults and board to lead protests each year for every year in that decade. And it wasn't until 1967 until the State Fair of Texas fully desegregated. As Dr. Martin Luther King famously said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. One thing that's not talked about often is, just as mentioned, the civil rights movement apparently didn't make it to Dallas, which is wrong. Dr. King actually did come here one time, and wasn't welcomed very welcoming. He spoke at SMU, and in the house that we stand in front of today is where he came and had dinner with Miss Craft that evening. Change doesn't happen overnight. Mrs. Craft taught us that if we want justice, we must be prepared to stick with it for the long haul. I want to thank 2 organizations who have been with the city every step of the way to help make this day possible and to help us illuminate the contributions of Mrs. Craft to so many others. Thank you to our partners, the Junior League of Dallas and the Friends of Juanita Craft Civil Rights House, for all that you have done to preserve Mrs. Craft's legacy. Can we give them a round of applause, please? In addition to that, I mentioned they were partners with the city. So I want to thank all of the city staff that contributed to making this happen as well. Thank you to our Office of Arts and Culture. Thank you to our library department. Thank you for everyone who has given a contribution to getting us to today. Your dedication to this process and your diligence to make this task symbolize everything that is great about Dallas. And I want to thank the... I've already actually said that part, so I'm going to go to the next. We appreciate all that y'all have done for this restoration, and we thank you in advance for all that you will do to maintain this historic site for years ahead. When we join together and put our minds and our talents and our resources together, we can truly accomplish greatness, and this is an example of it. I'm confident that this will be a major destination in our city, as it should be. The name says it all. Juanita Jewel Shanks Craft truly is a jewel of our city and a jewel of sunny South Dallas. This house will bring awareness to the contributions South Dallas residents have made for many years to come. I challenge each of you here today to tell someone else about what you see and hear and what you've learned here today. Bring your family and friends back to Warren Avenue. When visitors travel to Dallas, make sure that they know to stop by the Juanita J. Craft House and to explore the civil rights movement that did come to Dallas. Thank you all again for being here today in sunny South Dallas. I look forward to seeing many of you here as we gather for future occasions. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Basadula. I hope many of you will take him up on his challenge to visit the Craft House on many occasions. At this time, I would like to recognize some of our elected officials who have arrived since we began. We do have former City Council member Kevin Felder, who's with us. We have current president of the NAACP, Ms. Sharon Middlebrooks, who's with us this afternoon. We have Judge Dominique Torres Williams, who's here with us. And we also have Dr. Harry Robinson with the African American Museum. Excellent. All right, so now at this time, we will hear from two more of our partners from the city of Dallas. First, we will hear from Liz Cedillo Pereira, and then we have Assistant City Manager, and after Liz, and then we will hear from Martine Elise Philippe, Director of Office of Arts and Culture. Thank you.
Good morning. And thank you, Candace. Again, Liz Cedillo Pereira, serving as Assistant City Manager for the City of Dallas, and together with our City Manager, T.C. Brodnex, and his wife, Mrs. Brodnex, who's here today on her birthday weekend. Thank you, Andrea, for being here. We welcome you to the Craft home. Upon the death of Mrs. Craft in 1985, she willed her home to the City of Dallas to be used as a place where people of all backgrounds could visit and come and learn how to become a change maker. Since 1994, this home has operated as a public historical site. By 2017 and 18, the number of visitors and requests for tours at the Craft home was on decline. The house had a number of structural issues. The foundation, the roof, the siding, landscaping, and plumbing all needed a little TLC. With the help of the Cultural Affairs Commissioners, specifically and notably Cannon Flowers and Jesse Hornbuckle, a steering committee was formed to address the repairs that needed for the house and to envision what a complete restoration would and should look like. One of the greatest blessings throughout this entire process goes back to the steering committee raising the funds necessary to come back and in a time frame to pay for the historic structure report. We acknowledge those efforts as being fundamental. The funding for the report came via a grant from the Communities Foundation of Texas also. The historic structure report includes a complete inventory of the historic materials and methods of construction so that anything new to the house will best match and enhance the project rather than detract from its history. Fundraising back then came through a generous donation from the State Fair of Texas, thanks to Dr. Francois Booker Drew. Thank you. Just as momentum was starting to build, you may remember an unthinkable event occurred. Mother Nature. In May of 2019, the Craft home suffered a damaging flood and busted sprinkler pipe in the attic, leaving much of the house in ruin. Not only was the home damaged, but several items that had been in the house were also affected. The damage required the home to be gutted and abated. It was a really sad time for us. For the next year, the house sat mostly dormant, and as you have already probably figured out, the pandemic became our next challenge. We are very, very fortunate to have people come to this work to help us save and restore this beautiful and historic structure. Of course, our lead external partners who have been named the Junior League of Dallas and Friends of Juanita Craft Home and Museum. But there were so many others, so many like you. So we acknowledge your presence today, and a round of applause for all of our friends who are here today on this special day and this momentous occasion. Please join me in celebrating all of you. Catherine Seal, the head of the Landmark Commission and formerly the Executive Director of Preservation Dallas. Nancy McCoy, architect and partner at Quimby McCoy, who is one of the leading practitioners of historic preservation architecture in Dallas. Joanna Hampton, the architect and current Board Chair of Preservation Dallas, who leads the interpretation planning efforts of the Craft Housing Steering Committee, Cannon Flowers, Chair of the Steering Committee, McCoy and Associates, who was awarded the contract to design the restoration plan, and Nouveau Construction, who was awarded the contract for the construction. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our staff of the Office of Arts and Culture and the Dallas Public Library for keeping this project on track and for all the care you have taken in every step of the way. Would you join me in thanking our staff at the City of Dallas? And once again, our welcoming committee, who includes Dallas Police Department and all those people who are here to welcome us today to the Craft Home. I want everyone to know that the City of Dallas, we take this very seriously, and we understand the great responsibility we have as stewards of this building and the history that is housed within it and in this community. We know that we could not have done this alone, and we are grateful and thankful that so many partners throughout the city realize the need to protect and preserve the Juanita J. Craft Civil Rights House and Museum. Thank you.
Good morning. Such a blessing to be here among such a wonderful turnout. I want to first pause. I'm Martine Philippe. I serve as the director of the Office of Arts and Culture, and I want to acknowledge our Art and Culture Advisory Commissioners who are here and present. I won't acknowledge you by name, but I will give you the moment to stand or wave wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited to share a little bit about what you each will see inside the Craft House and to recognize some of the individuals who were a part of this spectacular exhibit on display. During the lifetime of Mrs. Juanita J. Craft, her house served as a home base for young activists striving to find their place in the civil rights struggle. The exhibit continues her legacy, documenting Mrs. Craft's history in hopes of inspiring contemporary civic transformation towards a more just and equal world. Visitors, beginning with you, to this museum will find that it narrates the life and work of Mrs. Craft, who led the charge for equal rights and dignity for Black Americans, not only here in Dallas, but across Texas and throughout the nation. The galleries inside cover 8 decades and explore how Mrs. Craft took the fight from the streets to the courts, leading protests to desegregate public accommodations, as well as her aforementioned work with the NAACP and on Dallas City Council. There are multiple galleries with exhibits highlighting Mrs. Craft's family, her education, her work at the Adolphus Hotel, and the impact she had on young people. In addition, you'll find there are galleries designed to educate visitors on enslaved people in Texas, the history of Juneteenth, the struggle for freedom, and the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. We would like to thank the Dallas Public Library for their collaboration on object loans and the images you'll find from the Juanita Craft collection that are on display. This exhibition was researched, curated, and written by Lindsay Richardson, Kate McBride, Andy Chen, and Marissa E. Tabaka. The curators have noted the valuable historical context provided by Donald Payton, Chandler Vaughn of the Juanita Craft Foundation, the Honorable Diane Ragsdale, Ms. Patricia Perez, and the Honorable Harriet Earhart. The exhibition was designed by Asymmetric Studio in Brooklyn, New York, and object conservation for all the objects that you'll interact with inside was handled by Lizanne Gann, Kimberly Crozier-Mitch, Kathleen Kiefer, and Christiana Janata. Finally, I'd like to thank members of our Office of Arts and Culture team who've made it their mission to get this project across the finish line. Thank you to John Spriggans, Nikki Christmas, and Kendall Ferguson. Your vision and your determination have truly been the heart of both the restoration and the relevant cultural center that's been created here. We are so very grateful that this facility has been reestablished as a working part of the Office of Arts and Culture. We'll need your continued support in the days, months, and years to come. So please, as Councilman said, please continue to visit, bring your family and your friends and your cousins, and make these walls stay alive. Thank you so much for being here.
been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Ooh, when I go to the movies and I go downtown, somebody keeps telling me not to hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will. When I go to my brother, oh, and I say, brother, won't you help me please? Oh, it seems like every time I ask, he keeps bringing me straight right down to my knees. Oh, there were times when I felt I wouldn't last too long, but now I know I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mahogany, for that beautiful selection. Yes. Oh, goodness. And thank you again to our partners at the City of Dallas and everyone who has worked so very hard on this project. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege as the chair of the Friends of Juanita Craft Civil Rights House and Museum to personally, publicly thank our friends group, and also to thank our steering committee members who initiated this great work. So thank you. Much work continues, so this is not the end. This is just another beginning. So, but, I just want to say thank you. But then also I'd like to publicly thank our partner, Junior League of Dallas. And so that when the Junior League signs up to help, man, wow, they don't sit on the side. They jump in all the way and with you. So thank you. And we have been so grateful for the support, the continued support that the ladies from the Junior League of Dallas, and at this time we would like to welcome to the podium their president, Emily Somerville Cabrera.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Candace. Since 1922, the Junior League of Dallas has stood as an organization of women committed to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and improving the community through the effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. Our league is the second largest league in the world and the largest and oldest training organization for women in Dallas. On May 4th, 2022, we celebrated our 100th anniversary. Preparation for this milestone began in 2016 with the formation of a Centennial Committee, which planned a series of events leading up to this date. One of the committee's priorities was to identify a special project that would mark this occasion and inspire future generations of Dallasites. Our leaders set a project that would align with the League's mission, have a lasting, positive impact on our city, serve every member of the Dallas community, and inspire civic leadership into the next century. After reviewing countless project proposals, the committee unanimously selected the restoration of the Juanita J. Craft Civil Rights House. To our members, restoring and opening Ms. Craft's home was an opportunity to be a partner in preserving her legacy in our city's history and to help reinforce the simple but powerful idea that an ordinary woman can effect extraordinary change. She was a visionary who described herself as a professional volunteer, something our members can certainly relate to. Her tireless dedication to making Dallas an inclusive city for every one of its residents continues to inspire us and reflect our values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Beyond supporting the restoration of her home, the League has been and remains committed to preserving Ms. Craft's legacy. In September 2021, we showcased her many contributions to advancing civil rights in our centennial exhibit in the Hall of State during the State Fair of Texas, which welcomed more than 2.2 million visitors that year. This was one of the first public displays of her life and legacy since her passing in 1985. Last February, on what would have been Ms. Craft's 120th birthday, we partnered with Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, the City of Dallas, and the Friends of the Juanita Craft Civil Rights House and Museum to establish February 9th as Juanita Craft Day. Many of you joined us for that momentous celebration. This year, the Juanita Craft House became a signature project of our League, through which we will provide volunteers dedicated to supporting the house for years to come. And this past September, we partnered with the State Fair of Texas and Dallas ISD to distribute a commemorative Juanita J. Craft coloring book to more than 10,000 fourth grade students across the city. We will also continue to work closely with the mayor, city, and Friends of Juanita Craft House and Museum towards national historic designations that will take the house to a new level of significance and national prominence. We are honored to have this project as part of our League's history, and joining the Office of Arts and Culture, Friends of Juanita Craft, and funders on this restoration project reflects the spirit of our mission to build a better Dallas. So on behalf of the Junior League of Dallas, I would like to thank our city leaders, including Mayor Eric Johnson, Councilmember Adam Basaltua, City Council members Gaden L. Willis and Paula Blackman, who are sustaining members of our League, our committee, Centennial Committee co-chairs Margot Goodwin and Andrea Cheek, as well as other members of their committee and the League who were instrumental in making this happen. They are Karen Shuford, Laura Losinger, Sarah Jackson, Susanna Carrillo, Abby Murphy, Jasmine Price, Layla Gully, and Jennifer Scripps. Since adopting the Craft House as our centennial project, these women built a coalition of supporters who, along with the city and the National Park Service, gave more than $1.4 million to restore Ms. Craft's home as you see it today. I'd like to specifically thank the following donors who were among the first to answer the call in the initial months of our engagement: the Eugene McDermott Foundation, Hoblit-Zell Foundation, Make It Count, the Addie Foundation, State Fair of Texas, the Constantine Foundation, the Fund for Arts and Culture at Communities Foundation of Texas, the Summerlee Foundation, Hillcrest Foundation, and the Crest Foundation. We are incredibly grateful for your support and partnership. I know several of you have joined us today, and thank you for helping us make this special project happen. As I mentioned a moment ago, one of the reasons this project was selected for our Centennial Project was our deep appreciation for how Ms. Craft exemplified transformational leadership. She had an extensive track record for building leaders, including the Craft Kids, who you'll hear from shortly. While our League is nearing the end of our 101st year, we are only beginning our second century of service to Dallas. As we look to the future, we aspire to be, like Ms. Craft, transformational, impactful leaders in our community. Her life shows us that one passionate woman can change the course of history, and even decades after her passing, inspire service, partnership, and impact. It has been our honor to work with all of you to bring this vision to life and to recognize her life and work. Thank you.
Thanks again, Emily, and to you and all the ladies of Junior League Dallas. This has been an amazing journey together. Mrs. Juanita Kraft helped to organize the Dallas Youth Council, which would become the model for youth organizations in NAACP chapters around the country. The young adults who were members of the Dallas Youth Council were called Kraft Kids. You have already heard about some of the work of the Kraft Kids who staged a boycott of the state fair to draw attention to discriminatory practices. We are truly blessed to have some of the Kraft Kids here with us today who knew and worked with Mrs. Kraft. Two of them will share their experiences with us at this time, but we know that there are more Kraft Kids out there, and we want to fully engage with you as we move forward. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Patricia Perez to please approach the podium, and she will be followed by the Honorable Diane Ragsdale.
Good morning. We got a beautiful day for this, didn't we? Just a beautiful day. So I didn't write a speech. I'd just like to talk about Mrs. Kraft. I first met her on, I always cry. I first met her on Saturday, October the 2nd of 1965. I had moved to Dallas to live with my mother's brother and his wife. My Aunt Ruby was a good friend of Mrs. Kraft. She had taken millinery classes with Mrs. Kraft. And on the way from Love Field, we came here first. She wanted us to meet Mrs. Kraft. We lived, take a left on Atlanta and then a left on Berger, 3 blocks over. And so we came to meet Mrs. Kraft, but I just have to tell you, we've made this place into a beautiful museum. But the magic happened in the little house. The little house is where we had all of our NAACP Youth Council meetings. It's where we planned our trips to all over the country. L.A., I went to Boston with her. We went to Cincinnati. It's where we planned all of our candy drives. It's where we planned how to secrete all this money from our community to do what she needed for us to do. The little house is where the magic happened. And I just want to tell you this. My first impression of Miss Kraft is the impression I've kept of her all of my life. Just this powerful, elegant woman who wanted the world to be better. And she imbued us with that spirit. She made us know that it could be better. Mrs. Kraft made us feel powerful in a time when people conspired to make us feel powerless. And that is what I will always remember about her. I am so glad that this house is finished. Today I took a lift to where I used to live and walked the path that I used to walk to this house. It was so empowering, the same way I felt empowered as a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old walking to this house. Empowered as I felt riding those buses to the conventions, because we knew that we were doing something special. She made us feel special. She was special. And I am so glad this house is open. And I hope that it gives back to the community in this era what it gave to the community in my era. Thank you all for coming. And I hope you all enjoy that beautiful house. Have a good day.
Good morning to each of you. First and foremost, I want to thank God for this wonderful day. I mean, the weather is wonderful, and really the crowd, the actual event, all of which is so very beautiful. I also want to thank all of those who have been involved in helping us to restore and protect the Juanita Craft Civil Rights House and her legacy. Fannie Lou Hamer said, "Never to forget where we came from and always praise the bridges that carried us over." Today we honor and celebrate Mrs. Craft's legacy. In the early 40s, Mrs. Craft started organizing NAACP youth councils throughout the state of Texas to fight against Jim Crow and white supremacy. Because of the NAACP Youth Council established by Mrs. Craft, I was introduced to the civil rights movement at age 11. Mrs. Craft's home served as a civil rights training ground for hundreds of students. Every Saturday morning, parents would drop off their children at Mrs. Craft's home for lessons in civil disobedience, voter registration and education, lessons in protesting, and we also would study our history, African American history, and travel to the NAACP conventions throughout the country. And lest we forget, this was during Jim Crow. We were taught lessons in self-reliance and how to take care of self, such as creating a community garden and canning the foods. Of course, I was not a part of that. Mrs. Craft always said, "I had no children, so I adopted the world." And I was one of those children. I was a child who she disciplined, a child who she encouraged and motivated, a child to whom she provided guidance. Ms. Craft recognized that students always have been at the forefront of most major social movements, from the civil rights movements of the 1960s to the anti-apartheid movement. Let us make sure that we have programming that reflects her legacy as a female organizer and social justice activist. As we reclaim and protect the Juanita Craft legacy, let us make sure that our youth are in the forefront, just as Mrs. Craft would have wanted. Thank you so very much.
Oh, wow. And wouldn't we all be so lucky to have a Miss Juanita Craft in our lives? Yeah. Thank you. Well, that's true. Very true. Thank you, Ms. Perez and Ms. Ragsdale, for sharing your memories with us. I'd like to believe that Mrs. Craft was a prophet and seeing into the future of what we could be. And although she did not have any children, she planted seeds of change and activism within our community. And they have borne great fruit in this fair city and throughout this nation. Before we adjourn, I do want to say a special word of thanks to our friends at the State Fair of Texas who have been with us this entire time, the entire way, and Gina and Madeline, who pick up the phone every time I call or text and email, and have been a great support this whole entire time. I also want to give a special thanks and recognition to our former Director of Arts and Culture, Ms. Jennifer Scripps. And because of Jennifer, who also was a visionary and who also planted seeds, we are here today. So thank you, Jennifer. Whew, y'all. Okay, so
I want to just take a moment of personal privilege and give a big thank you to Candace Thompson. It's just like her humble leadership nature to only acknowledge all those else. But if we have heard today, this has took a lot of corralling. This has taken a lot of organizing. And this beautiful event would not have taken place without the leadership and the perseverance of Candace Thompson. So thank you so much for your contribution.
What can we say? We get by with a little help from our friends, right? All right, so, and also we have Southern Dallas Link, who is providing our shuttle service. Thank you to the State Fair of Texas, who sponsored that. If your cart is at the State Fair and you signed up for a personalized tour today, we are suggesting that you get your vehicle and then come back, in the lot on Latimer and Warren. And the last shuttle will leave here at 12:45. I need y'all to hear me. Because I don't want y'all to say that, you were stuck and nobody came to get you, The last shuttle leaves here at 12:45. There may be a grace of 12:50, but I can't promise you that. So, but after the ribbon cutting, we will have a reception, and the house will be open for viewing. But these will not be tours, so you'll just be able to go through the house. And so thank you for your time today. There will be a limited number of individuals allowed in the house at one time. So this is a house, y'all. So remember, this is a house. So, we have capacity of, about 15, 20 people at a time. So if we get over that number, we will have to tell you, just wait, because somebody else is going to be leaving out on the other side. All right, and so we do have a next available tour. If you have not, that you can sign up, at 3 p.m., and after the ribbon cutting, please enjoy the reception in the Memorial Garden that we have here. And we would like to thank the Adolphus Hotel for the beautiful centerpieces that were donated. And at this time, we will have our ribbon cutting, followed by a few pictures here on the step. I'm sorry? Okay. Again, thank you so much for your attendance, and we will move forward with our ribbon cutting. Thank you.
I happen to be of a darker hue. American citizen. I happen to be of a darker hue than some other Americans. I don't believe in segregation, and I refuse to segregate myself because that's the only way that I can say to the other fella, don't you segregate me. I lived under segregation for a number of years. I was not happy there because I saw the barriers that had been placed in front of me. I defy anybody to tell me that I can't think because I am a female. I defy anybody to say that I can't think because of my age. I'm proud of my age. And I've said to people oft time, don't criticize me because God has blessed me with age. I think that I have been left here to do something for somebody. And I think that I'm going to be about that chore. And I have them all laughing that you will never put me in a corner anywhere. I would build myself a round room first so there would be no corners. As I said earlier in this interview, I've always accepted